Right, guys. Okay, so today I'm not gonna. I'm not so much playing. I've done a video like this a little while back. I actually intend to do a bit more sort of this kind of talking videos as well, generally talking about the music business, little aspects. So if you've got any questions you want to ask me, just go away. Or it could be just about the guitar, any kind of, maybe practice tips and all that. So I had a plan to do something today, and I'll cover the subject probably next time. But today I'm just gonna, based on the kind of what happened yesterday, I was just gonna sort of vent off about this a little bit and sort of just iron out a few things. So the topic today is about Bruce Dickinson coming out on Sky News and effectively having what we call Brexit buyer's remorse. So a while back I did a similar kind of video where I basically ranted off about Bruce Dickinson and the fact, more importantly, that we knew he'd voted for Brexit, and Iron Maiden had signed up on the petition to the government effectively to sort out the issue regarding travelling for musicians in the era of post-Brexit. And I particularly went off because I thought it was so hypocritical, considering Bruce Dickinson. I know a band is not sort of is made of entities; they all have different point of views. But ultimately, Bruce Dickinson had signed up, had voted for Brexit quite proudly, and even sort of late in the negotiation process was still going, everything's going to be hunky dory and it's going to be great. And the usual, whatever sort of us Remainers said, we were the Ramonas, it was Project Fear, everything. But guess what? Everything we said actually has happened. True touring in Europe, once the pandemic is over, is going to be extremely difficult for most bands, not for Iron Maiden, even though he's actually even saying it in this interview with Sky, that even they're finding it difficult and it's a lot more expensive, and I can imagine that. But what Bruce is having here is two things. One is buyer's remorse in some ways. He's realizing that actually what he voted for, or what he thought he was voting for, is not what he get. But more importantly, and that's also bullshit, to be honest, because I'll come to that in a minute. Or I hope it's bullshit, because if it's not, then there's a severe issue with Bruce's intellect here. My issue here is also that he's talking about the fact that the government, he's blaming the government for it. And I've seen quite a number of Brexit supporters saying that. And I'm not going to name one, but I know a particular individual who stood for the Brexit Party in the country that I know quite well, and he was blaming the government for the negotiation they did. Well, two things here. One, the champion of Brexit, Mr. Nigel Farage, didn't really deal with Brexit, so they can't, they can keep saying the government did that, but their champion sort of left as soon as the vote happened. Two, do you really believe that any other government would have been able to get any different deal? And here's again, just going back to understanding the EU, the fundamental principles of the EU. If you're part of member of the EU, and more importantly, the single market, you have to accept freedom of movement. Now, again, the people that voted for leave, and more importantly, people that campaign, who are actually the team that eventually negotiated the deal, that is the Boris Johnson, the Michael Gove, the Priti Patel, who, very ardent supporters of Brexit, hardcore supporters of Brexit. They were excited about stopping the freedom of movement. Look at Priti Patel's announcement when she finally got that through. She was super excited. That was a key thing for her. So, if you're Bruce Dickinson, and this is where it comes to a bit of the galling thing. If you're Bruce Dickinson, your entire career was based on freedom of movement. Well, your two careers. One, as a musician, you've toured across the world. Now, yes, we can talk about you've been to the US, you've been to Japan and all that, but let's face it, you made your name first in Europe. And you've got a huge fan base in Europe. You're touring all the time in Europe. Your first career was about, freedom of movement. Your second career as an airline pilot is all about freedom of movement. So if you supported Brexit, and Bruce Dickinson, by the way, was not a late comer to as a Eurosceptic. He's been a Eurosceptic for years. I've known that for years. And he's been part of that sort of branch of people that still believe the UK could stand on its own. The issue here is that he's saying that the government didn't negotiate the right deal. There was no other deal to negotiate. And as much as I hate to say it, and I hate this government, I hate Boris Johnson, there was no other deal, because the EU clearly stated it. It's part of their charter. It's part of their constitution that you cannot be in the single market and not accept freedom of movement. And that was the issue. What Britain wanted is, we still want to be part of the single market, effectively. If you look back at the manifesto of the Leave campaign, but we want to abolish freedom of movement. So what they wanted is effectively a partial alignment with the EU, which they knew they were not going to get. Now, we can blame the EU and say the EU didn't want to negotiate, but the EU was clear. If we go back to the campaign, The EU warned us of that. Straight away, they would be shot down in flames. This is a domestic vote. You do not interfere. I even remember Barack Obama saying it. And again, same thing. Why is Barack Obama intervening in our own internal policy? So for Bruce Dickinson to now come and say that that's not, they could sort something out. No, because that's effectively, unless you were happy to rejoin the EU or potentially the single market and accept that you will be, you will have to sort of take off you have to bring back freedom of movement. There's no other way around this. So that's the first thing. So this is also, that brings me to the next point about Bruce Dickinson. Unlike a lot of principal Bruce in this country, I would have hoped Bruce Dickinson actually was a little bit more literate regarding the EU, but clearly he wasn't, because if he'd read the Charter of the EU and understood the EU, he would have realized actually voting for this does mean this, because most Remainers had been saying it for a number of years, and even experts who were not political experts, they were university lecturers, had been saying it, that you do realize that freedom of movement will go, which will affect a huge number of industries that depend on freedom of movement. So it's actually really annoying when Bruce Dickinson is coming out now. People say, oh, it's great, he's actually changed his mind. He hasn't changed his mind. He still is a Brexiter. He's trying to tell you that somebody else can fix this. That's not the case. So do not buy that BS. It's not true. Right. Then what really is like the hypocrisy of all this, he voted Brexit and then he left for France. So he actually lives in France. So he's coming here saying, oh, they messed up, all the poor musicians here are going to struggle. But you don't even live here anymore. You actually decided to move away. All right? And we also know perfectly well that this is not going to affect you. You're not going to be the one sorting out visas. Rob Smallwood and his management team are going to sort all this out. You're never going to have to even worry about these things. So the fact that you're sort of showing the support now is really galling, Bruce. It's actually really a kick in the teeth to most of us musicians that are trying to make way to our careers as musicians. So it's really, really, really frustrating. Finally, people are going to pay something, I've seen like 40, 50 quid to go and see him speak. What do you want to hear him about? Fine, you want to hear about his musical career? Great. But he was going to be asked a question about Brexit. It's obvious because there's going to be some musicians in there. What, do you want to hear him talk about this and talk about his buyer's remorse? You're going to pay 40, 50 quid for that? It's ridiculous. And I'm not saying somebody like Bruce could have changed the vote, but trust me, people like him that are pretty influential, they could have had a big influence at that time, and they didn't. He decided that, you know what, this is the best, this is the best cause for the country. You knew that, Bruce. You knew that. And if you didn't, that really puts in question your validity as a businessman as well, because that's what you portray yourself as. So anyway, just to finish this off, it's really frustrating. I know people are going to start saying, oh, another musician that's moaning about this. Yeah, it is, because it's actually, look, Brexit, unlike sort of an election, a general election where your party loses or your party wins, whatever it is, it's temporary. Eventually your party will come back. And if it doesn't, that means it hasn't done a good job. Like we have a current situation where our opposition isn't great. So, we haven't managed to come back into power. I'm a Labour supporter historically, but I struggle with the current shape of Labour. So that's fine. We can accept that. But Brexit was a very different thing. It wasn't just a little... For the simplest question asked to the British public, you were dealing with a huge structural change to the economy of the country and also to the social fabric of the country. Take the example of me, 27 years living in this country. I feel I don't belong here anymore. I want to go. I want to leave. And I live here. My family's from, my kids were born here and grown up here. I don't want to be here. And if you really want to take it further, I had to have therapy regarding it. Yeah, you may laugh about it, but because it really fundamentally changed my idea of living here and the future of me. The future of me at the moment, post-pandemic, I don't even know if I'll ever be able to tour. So for somebody like Bruce, in his kind of influential position, to have supported it, now coming out having buyer's remorse, but worse than that, actually blaming the current government for not negotiating when, read the small prints. You should have known that. But no, at that time, that was Project Fear. Anyway, look, guys, it is what it is. Hopefully, maybe something will sort itself out. If you want to comment, if you want to start an argument with me, go for it. I'm all for it. If you want to discuss it, just drop me a message. But I'll come back with some different topics next week and not so much about Brexit. Till then, take care, stay safe, and stay metal.